So, we're doing a dream stream. Some late night vibes. No drawing, no sketching, no lagging. Just storytelling. And this is our picture of topic. So, I guess we can just jump into the storytelling. Oh, before that, let me tell y'all that yeah, we're just gonna be telling a little bit about this picture specifically. We'll be doing more of these later on. I have bullet points here. I have not laid out an actual script, so I'm gonna be free, talking this stuff a lot. And I might say I might get off track maybe a little bit, but the bullet points are supposed to help with that. But I figured not having a script would allow me to storytell a little bit better. Later streams like this, I'll probably be really good at it. Yeah, Lupe, this man is a motherfucking killer. Shy City, baby. Anyways, alright. Let's talk about the picture. I'm pretty sure you guys can see it better. So I watched my VOD the first time yesterday. And I was like, oh, you can see my drawings actually really nicely up there. So I'm sure you guys can see it pretty good, even though it's pretty small on my screen. So, the people featured in this drawing, we're jumping right into the storytelling. This drawing doesn't have a name, unfortunately. I should title these things. But the people featured, and we're gonna go from the top left all the way down to the bottom right. The top left is Reese. In fact, actually, we're just gonna go from the top section and we're gonna start there. The very two top characters are actually not around during this period of time. So the front picture, these front two characters, this takes place in more modern day time, 2000, 2010, around then, because that's when I started making my story. The back two characters actually take place in 1980. They're not dead in the 2000s at all, but those are their younger forms, and I will tell you the reason for that. So those characters are, on the left, we have Reese with the scythe on his back. And then we have on the right, Jane Sasamura with the skull on her back. These two are the founders of Gang of Seven. They created it back in 1980. And the reason it was formed was for Jane's own ambitions. Jane is the holder of sin. In this world, there are 8 entities. 7 of them are the 7 deadly sins. And the last one is sin itself. All of these sins have holders. And sin is the most powerful holder of them all. Back in 1980, Jane was the holder of sin, the girl with the skull on her back. She was a target. She always had a target on her back, so she wore the skull as a symbol of death to come. She wanted to form a group of people, since most sins are hunted just for being overly powerful in this random world full of aura users. They are hunted down by people who, 1, want their power, 2, don't want their powers to exist, or 3, just think of them as demons, as fucking devils. They are constantly hunted. So, Jane decided to unify all the sins and get them all together. This has never been done in the history of the sins at all. They have generally all worked alone for the longest of times. I'm playing with my teeth. And Jane decides to go on a mission to find all the sins and recruit them into her own little group of protectors who are going to be in a unified objective to keep each other safe. This is what initiates the creation of the Gang of Seven, hence the name 7. She goes out And during this journey, she meets Reese, the guy with the scythe. He helps her to find the sins and to create and form the Gang of Seven. That was these two's whole goal and ambitions. And they do that when they set out. They don't only recruit the seven deadly sins when they're creating this group. They also recruit other people, other friends and other like souls. You'll learn about those people later. But just know they finally make the gang around 1980. It takes her about 2 years after she finally gets sent to finalize the group. About a year later is when she's going to have to give up Sin. She finds this out, and a lot of things go down during that last year of her having Sin. And one of them involves fighting this big entity that was threatening the world, basically. And when she did this, she caused quite an uproar. And let's just say, unfortunately, the gang ended up getting split during this entire debacle. Why? I can't quite share yet. But just know, shit happens a year after she gets, or a year, 2 years after she gets the Sin. And a year later, she unfortunately loses. She doesn't have it for very long. 16 to 19. That's all she has it for. And then she gives it to Yuki. The Gang of Seven was formed. She lost it. And the gang fell apart, sort of. Okay, fuck it, I'm gonna share it. I didn't want to share this, I wanted to keep it, but it's just kind of too hard to transition if I don't share this. So Reese literally kills all the Gang of Seven members. Not all the Gang of Seven members, but all of the seven deadly sins. And these people, yes, they are very powerful. I know I said that in the beginning, that these are supposed to be some head honcho motherfuckers. But Reese is a gang leader himself too, and he is actually fucking god tier. There's a reason why he is the love interest of Jane, who is the most powerful character at that moment in time. And he kills them all. Jane finds out about this. She rolls into a massacre, and that's what causes the split of Gang of Seven. Jane goes off with the few remaining members that are still around, and she starts to recruit more people and regain the gang, but she's lost Sin, so she's no longer the holder of Sin. All the old Sin people are dead, so their powers are no longer on her side either, and the gang really becomes a shell of what it once was. And another faction, a few other members actually break off with Reese, and that's what forms the most rival gang of the Gang of Seven, which are the King Killers. He forms the King Killers and he builds this group, and by the time of 2010, 2020 and all that time, where Yuki is coming into play into the story, which are these two in the front, Yuki and Rachel, by that time, they are the two most powerful gangs in the city. Jane is the leader of the Gang of Seven, and Reese is the leader of the King Killers. And basically, their rivalry creates the whole problem for Yuki. So, if you were wondering why Jane lost Sin, it was because Yuki gained Sin. She transferred it over to him. And sins can't be transferred without killing the individual. She transferred it over to her cousin Yuki, and he became the new Sin holder. Sadly, this puts a target on his back. He doesn't find out about this until he's about 15. At the same time, he's actually in love with this one girl in his school named Rachel, and it just so happens that she's a member of the King Killers. I know it's one of those little ex machina moments, you know. This girl just so happens to be one. Just so happens, but only for a short period of time. She had got introduced to it by Reese. Rachel and Yuki actually start talking just a little bit before a confrontation breaks down, and I'm actually going to be doing a chapter breakdown where you guys can see all their talks and all the little stuff that happens before the conflict. But the conflict has happened, and basically Rachel there is ordered to attack Yuki, who's the older of Sin. She's ordered by Reese himself because he's doing some random shit. It becomes very clear in the show, but it's kind of hard to get into right now. But he sent her out there to attack her. Yuki is being protected by somebody, but he does get beat up pretty damn bad. But he's being protected by somebody. That is what pulls everything full circle and gets these two into a better situation with one another. She attacks him. The best friend Law comes to save him, and they kidnap Rachel. They bring her back to Jane for basically a trial, and yeah, Jane at that point initiates her into her gang. The attack on Yuki was her first mission ever, so she hasn't been a member for long. She has no loyalty to the King Killers. So she switches over immediately. She didn't like Reese in the motherfucking first place, actually. But yeah, she switches over immediately and becomes part of the Gang of Seven. But this scene that I drew, funny enough, is not the very first conflict. This is actually a conflict that takes place in probably like Arc 5, Arc 6. And this is when Reese gets back into her life. And Reese actually starts to manipulate her a lot more. She's a lot more closer to Yuki at this point. These two are they've been partners. They get placed as partners after their first fight. After that, they've been partners for like months. I said, if it's Arc 6, yeah, almost a year now. The fact that her whole world got flipped, she figured that she was good, that she was set, and that they did not care that she flipped sides. Little did she know that the guy would come back and, demand something from her. And once again, she has to basically fight with Yuki. And they end up in this situation. The situation where she feels broken, she feels torn. That is the main story behind this picture. Now, I'm not going to break down the sense powers just yet, but I will tell you this one last little note. Yuki having the power of sin, like Jane and Yuki do, or Jane did and Yuki does mean you have access to the original Seven's powers as well, on top of being a little bit more powerful. So that is why they are so important. But yeah, I think that's all the main story. Probably checking out already. Gotta go make a YouTube video, which is why I was late in the first place. But yeah, I'll definitely be doing another dream stream later. You guys there'll be another picture. I have another few bullet points, and a lot quicker. And I see you, man. Thanks for stopping by, Big Budget.